Here's why a stupid joke from a tech billionaire is actually kind of a big deal. This week, Salesforce CEO Marc Benioff, my former boss and generally good dude, cracked a joke about ICE at a company event in Vegas. He said, ICE is in the building and they're watching our international employees. This did not go over well. 1,000 Salesforce employees promptly signed a letter saying the company should stop doing business with ICE. And it's not the first time that Salesforce's choice of customer has engendered a strong reaction from stakeholders, in particular employees. In 2019, at my last Dreamforce, there were protests in the streets. They interrupted Benioff's keynote, and employees were in near revolt over CBP contracts at the time. So the question is why? And the answer is because Salesforce is not just any tech company, and Benioff is not just any tech CEO. Salesforce has been the model for ethical tech, and Benioff has been the model for enlightened, values-driven tech leadership. He's the guy who literally wrote the book on compassionate capitalism and pioneered the Pledge 1% model that 19,000 companies have signed up for, in which companies pledge to give back 1% of their profits, time, and product. And this is one of the reasons that I was so proud to work for Salesforce for 5 years. The other reason was the culture. The fundamental tenet of that being this concept of ohana, a Hawaiian term for family. And it might be kind of cringe to hear corporate leaders talk about the workplace as family, but at Salesforce, it really was. You could feel it. It was in the ethos. Sometimes we argued like siblings, but because we cared a lot about the customers, but also about each other. It was a highly collaborative place. Layoffs would have been anathema. Giving back was the expectation. When I got diagnosed with cancer, Benioff actually reached out to me personally and asked how he could help. So this ICE episode reveals an interesting tension between creating real employee buy-in versus just telling them what to do. Is there a downside to creating a culture where expectations of doing good is just so deep and abiding? What happens when leaders successfully articulate and connect employees viscerally to a sense of mission and values? Can they go too far? As the New York Times explains, by promoting the company as an ohana rather than a neutral entity, Benioff has effectively given his staff a say on how Salesforce is run. Contrast this with Palantir, which views national security contracts as a patriotic mandate. Salesforce's model has driven deep loyalty among employees, but it has also turned the brand's corporate values into a weapon that employees can use when they disagree with leadership. Now, I'm not so sure this is a real weapon per se, especially when power in Silicon Valley has shifted back to the employers, not the employees. But Salesforce versus Palantir is a really interesting contrast due to employees feeling real ownership in the direction of a company. Palantir has a much more transactional nature of the employment compact. Its controversial CEO is just nakedly communicating, hey, we need very specific things, and you're lucky to have a job here and be on this ride. And I think this is becoming more and more the norm in tech, big tech especially. Jobless growth, right? We have record profits, but hiring slowing. And this is coming at the same time as the fundamental value prop of SaaS companies is being called into question because of AI. My former colleagues who are still working in big tech are just thankful to have jobs. So the interesting question here is, what does all this portend for employee voice in what is still the fastest growing sector of our economy? And as AI eats the world, how do employees advocate for their own moral and ethical lines? Can they even do that? Do they have a voice? More to the point, do they feel safe using it? The fact that 1,000 Salesforce employees signed this letter is encouraging, but it also tells me there's some safety in numbers. So the question for leaders like Benioff in this moment is not just who to do business with, it's whether employees and other stakeholders still get a say. Did they still get a seat at the table? Salesforce has always been an ethical barometer for the tech sector. The question now is living ohana, not just talking about it, worth it because of all the messy dialogue that entails?